What's up everyone, Alex here, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. Before we get started, I just wanted to point out that we're going to be discussing the topic of sex, as in body stuff. But it's not going to go into any kind of detail, it's just the overall topic of sex. So just watch with discretion. I am not your parent. This video is marked as not for kids. All of my videos are, so if you're sticking around, you're sticking around. If not, then this is not the topic for you, obviously. But just a warning for the upcoming topic. Obviously, you've seen the title. I wanted to talk about sex autonomy and how it plays into my own transgender experience. I talked about having an autonomous transgender experience, having this transgender identity that I refuse to categorize in some ways. I'm either refusing to categorize parts of my transness, or I am redefining aspects of transness. Like, I am redefining malehood for myself. It's not for anybody else. It is my own personal gender experience. And I do the same thing with the idea of sex. It's taken me a really long time to get to this point, because people on the internet are so weird, but also I'm a little weird about like personal stuff anyway, and I wanted to make sure that I knew where I was mentally for this kind of topic. I posted an essay. Apparently people really liked it. I posted an essay on Substack, on the YB3 Wiki, and on the YB3 blog, and I had titled it, "My Sex is Non-Binary Too." And I've been like sharing it, circulating it. People really liked it as an idea. They thought it had some really good points, and I wanted to kind of go back to that, because not everyone who watches me on YouTube has seen that essay, and I kind of wanted to not address, that sounds like it's severe, but, you know, just like talk about it as a topic. But the basic premise is that I don't use binary sex labels. I never have, but I never knew what the alternative could be, so I would avoid things like male or female to refer to any kind of like physiology. Like, despite what my transgender experience is as of now, I would always kind of not talk about stuff like that. I don't like the idea that, like, my body started out this way, so no matter what I do to it, what I call myself, I'm still technically this sex. I do not like that narrative. It plays into this stupid thing about how, like, AGAB sticks with you. Like, you were assigned a gender at birth and you are that forever, no matter what you do. That also irks me. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But even in trans spaces, but just in humanity in general, there's too much focus on biological sex and what body parts people are supposed to have or expected to have. This happens a lot outside of transgender spaces, but like, I see a little bit of it within trans spaces, particularly the whole AGAB talk. Introducing yourself with your assigned gender at birth. Hey, I'm AMAB, I'm 45, thanks for adding me to this non-binary Facebook group. I didn't even make that up. Those are things I've seen in non-binary Facebook groups, particularly the one I'm in for like 30 plus non-binary folks. People just introduce their assigned gender at birth like they're introducing their name and pronouns. It's just so normal. And when I'm on Tumblr doing my Tumblr thing, running the YB3 blog and stuff, every so often I get inbox messages where people who I don't know, people who shouldn't be sharing this with me, will tell me what their assigned gender at birth was and then ask for like advice on labels, terminology, is my experience valid because I was assigned this at birth? And I have to keep like reiterating, don't tell strangers things like that on the internet, especially like, I'm 35 years old. Please don't give me that information. It doesn't matter what kind of space I have curated on the internet. I'm still just a random guy on the internet. And you don't know me, I don't know you. There's some level of like an honor system there. Like, you're supposed to trust me because I am doing all this work to talk about gender complexities and like kind of filling the gaps in queer language. But like, you still shouldn't share personal information with me. Like, at the end of the day, I'm still just like some random person on the internet, and you don't know what people can do with personal information about you. I've talked about this a lot before. I've like posted about this on my blog. Just like, you have to be careful on the internet. Like, the internet's always been weird. This isn't just like back when I grew up with the internet in the 90s, where like there were some weird predators and it wasn't being like regulated or moderated in spaces where those predators were lurking. But like, that still happens today. Just, it's a lot easier to lie on the internet. So it's a lot easier to seem trustworthy on the internet. So just like, be careful, I guess. Like, it's just so weird. But the whole AGAB thing is another binary to me. Assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth. You can only be, one of the two, and you're stuck with that, like, just permanently. And there's the assumption that those concepts come with certain traits. The whole assigned gender at birth thing, that as a concept comes from biases from doctors. They take a look at an infant and make a call based on what they are seeing, based on their own personal biases. And it's like, these are the female traits, these are the male traits. And a lot of people are assigned the wrong gender at birth and then have to be reassigned later. Intersex people are harmed the most by the concept of AGAB. And I feel like people created this weird divide between intersex and trans people, where intersex people have their own way of navigating assigned sex, and then you have transgender people who navigate it in their own way, and no one's allowed to advocate for or discuss the experiences of the other, I guess. It's very weird. There's a very weird divide there where, like, there are people who feel like intersex people who are trying to break through the sex binary are like the enemy. I have seen this happen where it's like, you're just a transphobe because, I don't know, you were assigned a gender at birth and it like made life really complicated, which, like, that happens to transgender people. I don't know why there are transgender people who cannot fathom that intersex people are also harmed by this thing. People want to hold on to the idea of sex as a permanent state of being, a permanent self that you cannot get out of. You cannot move away from, get out of, or deconstruct. It's just a way of life. And it sounds very much like the way that bigots talk about transgender people, where it's like, well, sure, she calls herself a woman, but she's really male. That's still misgendering because sex is gendered. When you think of someone who is male, you might end up assuming that it is a man. And people will call men male. That's the word that they use for them. And you can't really escape the gendering of sex unless you're willing to break out of the sex binary, which is like, I've talked about the sex binary a lot, where it's like, You can be neither thing. And you don't have to physically change anything about your body in order to, call yourself a different sex than what you were assigned at birth. I don't use specific sex terms, really. I don't use binary sex terms. I don't do male, female. I don't do female to male or male to female. That indicates a linearity that my gender has never fallen on. My gender has never been linear. It's been kind of all over the place, still following a specific path, but more branching than anything, expanding. It's not just I'm one thing and I'm moving to another thing, and those are the two permanent things you can be. Semi-permanent if you're moving, it's not actually permanent, but you know what I mean. Moving from one thing to another thing, and there's nothing in between, and there's nothing outside of that thing. That's just a binary. That's another binary that we don't have to all reject sex as a concept. We don't, I'm not trying to get every single person to say, no, this thing is bad, and we need to never talk about this or consider it as any kind of defining traits about ourselves. It's more I want to introduce the idea of deconstructing the idea of sex, because humans are very complex, and we kind of created these weird dichotomies even within transgender spaces. And it's male, female, and then you got to do something physical in order to be a third thing. Or sometimes people think the third thing is intersex, they're of the third sex, which also isn't correct. Just thinking that one or the other or a third thing, and that's all you get, and you cannot move through them, and you don't have any other options. No combinatory traits or concepts. You can't be two things at once or all three at once, etc., etc. And that just creates a perception of other people when you decide that sex has to look a certain way and be a certain way. Then whether you know it or not, you're still perceiving other people in a specific light because you believe that sex traits are tied to these different concepts. So the female body has to look a certain way. The male body has to look a certain way. It just creates a lot of complications with how we are perceiving each other, and it can lead to accidental misgendering or just I guess treating people differently and not realizing it, because we as a society have not entirely unlearned sex biases and gender essentialism. We grew up around that kind of stuff. We were raised with that kind of stuff, and it's just kind of ingrained, and you can't really escape that kind of thing unless everybody collectively no longer subscribes to that kind of thinking. So I went off on a hell of a tangent, which is what I was hoping for. I have such a short outline that I wanted to fill it with ranting about sex and the sex binary. But I don't use specific sex terminology. I've had some suggested to me. People were pushing altersex as a term, and I think originally altersex meant that you had the desire to change your body, to transition to something that was not male or female, which still is, I don't know. It felt weird as a term. I guess the definition has changed where it's you feel that your sex is something that's not male or not female, but I didn't want there to be an assumption that I have physically done something to myself to fit into this kind of thing. You can't use a certain label for your sex without the assumption that you've done something physically to your body in order for it to fit that label. I consider my sex non-binary. I have a sex that is of a non-binary quality. That's how I typically word it. It does not indicate that there are any physical traits that match this experience. I don't want my physiology to be gendered. I just call it non-binary. It doesn't matter what I call it, male, female, non-binary. None of it says anything about what my body actually looks like. The same with AGAB. Assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth, don't have any physical traits tied to them universally. It's going to differ. It's going to change. People are assigned and reassigned, and some people are assigned something else entirely at birth. A lot of intersex people are assigned intersex at birth. If they're lucky enough for doctors to see that there isn't anything physically wrong with them, it's just that they do not fit into this dichotomy, and that should be recognized. I do not know how often that happens, where people can be assigned intersex at birth, but birth assignment isn't even included on our licenses and stuff, our driver's licenses, our state IDs. It's not important in where we are. When I went through the whole name change process, and I bought a new birth certificate, and I bought a new driver's license, and I could change the sex on those documents without having to physically do anything, and it was irregardless of what my assigned gender actually was. So assigned gender just doesn't matter. I'm still going back to assigned gender, but I call my sex non-binary. My thinking is that I'm me. This is my body, and my body is who I am. So if I'm non-binary, then I consider my body to be non-binary. I'm biologically non-binary, and there's not really anything that can change that. I mean, I can obviously change the way that I am talking about my identity if it turns out that maybe I'm not actually non-binary. Very, very unlikely. Then I wouldn't consider my body non-binary. I feel like I would consider my body to be what my gender is. I feel like my sex and my gender are in alignment, which people tend to think that means cisgender, and it does not. I think the congruency of sex and gender should not be exclusive to the cisgender experience, because that's not the right way to look at it, I don't think. So that's pretty much it. I hesitated so much on making this video because I didn't want to get too personal about it, but having having posted that essay about my sex being non-binary kind of helped me to, sorry, that's a kitten at my door. It kind of helped me to sort of figure out how I wanted to talk about this concept in a way that was not really appropriate, but just in a way that made sense and was everything I wanted to share and nothing more than that. So I do have that essay. If I remember, I'm going to include it in the description. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Breaking down the sex binary, which I have talked about in a video before, but also just having an autonomous sex experience. I guess I should probably bring it back to the idea of autonomy, because I mentioned that and then I went on a tangent and didn't actually go back, like explain the autonomous thing. Autonomy, when it comes to sex or gender, means that you have an experience that can't be categorized or is like a redefining of certain concepts. So I call myself a man in a very autonomous way. My trans experience is autonomous, and it means that I am taking concepts that are not always binary, but binary concepts or just gendered concepts, and redefining them for myself. So I do not consider myself transmasculine, even though I'm a transgender man. My malehood is of a different quality, and I navigate it in a way that is kind of self-defined or self-determined. And sex is the same way for me. I navigate that in a way that is self-defined and self-determined. So sex autonomy, gender autonomy can absolutely work hand in hand, especially with the whole like gender being in alignment with one's sex. People might feel a different way about their own sex, because that's kind of a personal thing. So a lot of people might consider their sex to be one thing, their gender to be another, and they want them to be separated. They want their gender to feel separated from what their body is. And like, that's fine as long as that's not the narrative being pushed on other people. Like, it helps if people know that there are other options for the way we talk about our experiences, our identities. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I will have that non-binary sex essay in the description. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about the sex binary in a multitude of places. I'm pretty sure it's on the YB3 blog. And my main blog, which I don't really use for like all this kind of stuff anymore, it's more of a personal blog now, but I also talk about it there as well, because I've been working on this queer memoir, but I keep running into all these different discoveries about myself, and it's really hard for me to find a way to end the memoir because I keep, wanting to add more and more language to this thing. It's at almost 26,000 words, and I'm still not done. It still does not feel complete. And I talk a little bit about the sex binary in it, and I've quoted it. I don't know if I've quoted it, like excerpts from it on the YB3 blog, but definitely my main blog. But yeah, it is an ongoing topic. Autonomy is an ongoing topic for me. It's been almost life-changing to adopt the word autonomy and use it while I talk about navigating gender and gendered concepts like sex. And I like that I've discovered this as a thing. I didn't understand it at the time, but it I understand it now, and I'm looking more into what gender autonomy is and how it might play into all the different aspects of my identity. I've never had a very typical gender experience, ever since high school, really. Like, nothing's been typical. It's always been like, I have this experience, and it's different from other people who use these same labels for some reason, or other people who have the same gender that I do. And it took me a while to realize that was the autonomy talking. So it's a cool concept. I might get more into it the more that I gain a better understanding of my own autonomous gender and everything else. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do a video on gender autonomy versus gender nonconformity. I think that would be cool. But other than that, I am signing off for now. See you later.